We're halfway through the week. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Jae-in in Seoul. Let's get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. Korea avoids being mentioned on the list of currency manipulators by the U.S., but still remains on a monitoring list along with 4 other countries. Korea added more than 300,000 new jobs in September, but the jobless rate for young people still remains high. These stories and more coming right up. But first, global ratings agency Moody's has maintained Korea's credit rating at AA2, the 3rd highest on its scale, citing stable economic conditions. Moody's also reaffirmed its outlook on the country's economy, rating it as stable. Previously, Standard & Poor's upgraded Korea's credit rating to AA last August, while the nation earned a AA- rating from Fitch. Such ratings are seen as a result of Korea's relatively stable and firm economic fundamentals, despite geopolitical tensions over North Korea. Korea has not been designated as a currency manipulator in the U.S. Treasury Department's semi-annual currency report. However, the country will still remain on Washington's monitoring list alongside a handful of other countries. Our Kim Mo-kyun reports.
In its report released on Tuesday, the U.S. Treasury said no major trading partner is manipulating its currency to gain an advantage in trade this year. The Treasury said it did not alter its 3 major thresholds for identifying currency manipulation put in place last year by the Obama administration. The 3 being a bilateral trade surplus with the United States of $20 billion or more, a global current account surplus of at least 3% of GDP, and persistent foreign exchange purchases equal to 2% of GDP over 12 months. If a country meets all 3 of these criteria, it would be labeled a manipulating country, but if it only meets 2 of these conditions, they go on the monitoring list. South Korea was on the U.S. Treasury's monitoring list in April, mostly for posting a significant bilateral trade surplus with the United States and other factors. As well as South Korea, China, Japan, Germany, and Switzerland remain on the latest list, but Taiwan was removed. Among those countries, much attention was paid to China, as President Trump repeatedly pledged during last year's presidential campaign that he would include Beijing on the list of manipulators. The Treasury said it's concerned about China's unusually large bilateral trade surplus with the U.S. and its policies that limit market access for imported goods and services. Analysts say they expect President Trump not to take a hard line on China regarding the currency issue, as Washington seeks to cooperate with Beijing to solve the North Korea nuclear issue. Kim Mo-kyun, Business Daily.
China has convened its Communist Party Congress held once every 5 years, with Chinese President Xi Jinping expected to receive another 5-year term as party leader. Xi praised the benefits of socialism with Chinese characteristics at the opening of the Congress earlier today. He remained optimistic about the country's future, but also acknowledged many challenges facing the nation. The Chinese president highlighted the success of initiatives like the One Belt, One Road project, but expressed concerns over issues like China's air pollution. Xi's government has continued efforts to clean up rampant corruption and infighting that had plagued China's previous administrations. And moving on to our coverage of the markets, we have our markets contributor, Jemmy Kim, joining us on the line. Hello, Jemmy.
Hello.
All right, so tell us how Korean equities performed on this Wednesday.
Sure. South Korean stocks are looking strong today, mainly on solid gains in the U.S. markets overnight. The main index Kospi at one point in mid-afternoon trading hit a record intraday high before sliding back. The Kospi closed 0.06% lower at 2482.91 points, and the tech-heavy Kosdaq ended 0.31% lower at 668.42 points.
All right, could you give us a more detailed breakdown of the market action for us?
Sure. Number 1 market cap, Samsung Electronics, edged down 0.07%, almost unchanged, while SK Hynix, which has been on a bullish run along with Samsung Electronics, plunged 3.11% on profit-taking. In general, medicine, steel, and machinery were on the rise. POSCO was up 0.15%, while Hyundai Motor was 0.67% higher. Communications and food-related stocks, however, ended lower. SK Telecom ended 0.37%. down. And along with foreigners today, retail investors were also big buyers.
So what are we looking at for the rest of the week? I mean, are there any market events we should be keeping a close eye on?
Well, there are a number of issues on the global calendar we should be on the lookout for that could affect the markets here and, of course, worldwide. Tomorrow, the EU will be announcing its industrial production figures for August, while in the U.S., weekly initial jobless figures are due. And throughout this week, we will continue to have a number of speeches by Federal Reserve Board members. Jemmy Kim for Business Daily.
Some good news on the job front after the market was stuck in the doldrums over the past few months. Korea's rate of job creation picked up pace in September, adding more than 300,000 new jobs compared to a year earlier. Here's our Kim Hae-sung with more.
Statistics Korea says the country added 314,000 new jobs last month from a year ago, bringing the total number of employed to 26.8 million. Last month's figure marks an improvement from August when the number of new jobs fell below the 300,000 mark. The ministry says the pickup comes on the back of increased employment in construction and public administration, as well as improved job growth in the health industry. The overall employment rate posted 61.3% last month, up 0.3 of a percentage point from a year earlier. The youth jobless rate also edged down to 9.2%. But as the number of job seekers increased, the perceived youth unemployment rate as felt by regular people ticked up 0.2 percentage point on year, recording 21.5% last month. The figure is the highest since Statistics Korea began recording the number 2 years ago. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily.
And staying in the picture of the country's job market, President Moon Jae-in has announced yet another slew of labor-related policies. Under some 100 goals and objectives, the government says it hopes to create a better work environment for all. Our Yoon-shin has the details.
A better work environment, more jobs, and support for small businesses. On Wednesday, the Moon administration introduced its objectives and detailed strategy to bring about a major shift to the local job market and overall lifestyle of Koreans. One of the key measures is minimizing the amount of temporary employment.
Businesses often want an irregular workforce for two reasons. The company can terminate their employment through a relatively simpler process and can save money by paying less. From now on, employers won't be able to hire temporary workers for these reasons.
While exceptions, such as positions that require seasonal hiring, will be allowed, with the new policy, the government aims to create a more stable work environment and get rid of the problems that come with irregular employment, such as legal battles over pay or discrimination in the workplace. Along with that, the maximum weekly work limit of 52 hours, reduced from the previous 68 hours, will be heavily enforced to help improve Koreans' work-life balance and generate some 24,000 new jobs.
We will reduce the number of jobs exempt from the 52-hour-week policy, and will work on a policy through which workers can be compensated for the overtime through days off, instead of extra pay.
The administration also promised to secure 810,000 public sector jobs and increase the minimum wage to 10,000 Korean won, or about $9 within the president's 5-year term. The government also stressed creating platforms for startups, especially in information technology, and fueling their growth through providing financial and educational support ahead of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Yoon-shin, Business Daily.
The parliamentary audit continues at the National Assembly, with 3 standing committees carrying out inspections of government bodies. At the Labor Committee, President Moon's job-related policies, such as reducing work hours, as well as next year's minimum wage hike, are under the microscope. Both the ruling and opposition parties have agreed to cut working hours to improve the working environment, but remain at odds over the specific details. The ruling party says the measure needs to be carried out swiftly, with a maximum grace period of 3 years, but the opposition believes more time is needed. Lawmakers are also expected to clash over the double-digit hike to Korea's minimum wage, with the opposition arguing it will hurt small businesses. The Foreign Affairs Committee is conducting an overseas audit of Korean embassies in Nepal and Croatia, while the Defense Committee is conducting on-site inspections. Now, it goes without saying that creating new jobs, particularly for the youth, is one of President Moon's biggest challenges. As the government lays out its 5-year plans to boost jobs, it so happens to be the time of the year when many Korean firms are recruiting new employees. To tell us more about the recent trends emerging in the job market, as well as some useful pointers for job seekers out there, our Kim Ji-yeon joins us in the studio today. Hi, Ji-yeon.
Hi, Ji-yeon.
All right, so in addition to the cooling job market, the country's hiring culture has made some things difficult for young job seekers. I mean, we know traditionally that companies have been looking for candidates with stronger educational backgrounds, as well as some strong foreign language skills.
Right, so that is why the Moon Jae-in administration is trying to change that from the latter half of this year with the implementation of blind recruitment. And under the system, applicants won't be required to submit information on their academic background, hometown, or physical conditions, all of which are potential factors for discrimination. And candidates will be able to compete more fairly by being evaluated by their potential rather than by awards, grades, English proficiency test scores, your school and hometown, all of which may not be related to the job one's applying for. And I interviewed an expert on the latest trends that are emerging among job applicants. Take a look.
After the blind recruitment system was first announced by the government, the reaction was varied, with some saying it's a form of reverse discrimination. They argue that the emphasis on job-related experiences will only add to the already full lists of activities that job applicants have on their plate. But all in all, the new system has been praised for not requiring applicants to disclose their educational background, granting more opportunities for those hailing from less prestigious universities. Starting in July, blind hiring became mandatory for public agencies when recruiting new employees, and more companies in the private sector are voluntarily implementing blind recruitment.
The biggest advantage from the blind recruitment system is that those that have relevant job experience and passion but didn't come from prestigious schools, etc., can now get a fair shot of being hired, and it places more emphasis on criteria that couldn't easily be quantified, such as creativity.
The job consultant says the confusion stemming from the new system will likely be resolved as time goes on. In the meantime, she says it'll be helpful for applicants to play a long-term strategy in landing their dream job by first trying out part-time jobs or internship programs that are related to their ultimate career goal. For instance, if someone's applying for a job in the distribution or retail sector, a part-time job in, let's say, a convenience store could be helpful in reading consumer preferences.
Now, speaking of preference, is there a new trend emerging in terms of job preference compared to previous years?
Well, the expert that I've talked to said that there was a noticeable shift among the young applicants as what they consider as a dream company. And they say they preferred a horizontal and family-like company culture rather than the top-down approach rampant among conglomerates. And according to the survey by Job Korea, it shows that among the 1,880 students attending four-year universities or grad schools, 31.5% have said Kakao, the tech company behind the country's most popular messaging app, would be their #1 workplace. And the preference for Kakao turned out to be strong not only among students who wanted to work in tech and media, but it's also the main business, but also those hoping to work in management, design, marketing, and research.
Well, I think this result is quite interesting, considering that traditionally this top spot has usually gone to an established conglomerate like Samsung Electronics.
That's right. Samsung Electronics was ranked 6th this year with 14.3%. And apart from filling in resumes and participating in interviews, applicants usually study for 6 months and even up to a year to pass aptitude exams for entry position of a conglomerate. Also, what's noticeable in job preference among applicants is a surging demand for those eyeing SMEs and not waste time and effort.
Well, I guess this shift in preference is definitely good news, welcome news for SMEs, which usually have difficult times hiring people, right?
Yes, to resolve the mismatch among job seekers and recruiters, the government is rolling up its sleeves to come up with solutions to improve the working conditions of local industries. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance says for a month it will be visiting some 20 industrial complexes nationwide as part of its so-called job caravan program. And the purpose of the program is to provide a chance for state officials to listen to the daily work and difficulties workers and employers face in their current workplaces. That could be helpful for devising hiring policies. Also in attendance are college student reporters that are seen best at raising issues concerned with youth unemployment.
All right, let's hope to see more positive changes in the employment front. Thank you so much for that report today.
Thank you for having me.
Korean exports have been surging in recent months, and they're growing faster than any of its global competitors. According to data from the World Trade Organization, Korea's outbound shipments between January and August came to $375 billion, a 16% on-year rise. Seoul's trade ministry says the export rally is owed to strong recovery in the global economy, as well as high demand for semiconductors. The Netherlands posted the second highest on-year export growth with 12%, followed by Japan at 8.3%. Korean firms' investments in China have been declining amid the rising cost of labor in that country. Now, local businesses are now redirecting most of their funds to Southeast Asia in search of new growing markets. Our Eunice Kim has more.
This factory in Hwasong, Gyeonggi-do Province produces filter dryers, a key component in air conditioners that removes debris and wicks moisture. At the end of last year, the company completed its factory in Vietnam, starting production in January. It already had a factory in China, but it's pouring investment into its new plant in the Southeast Asian country, with plans to assemble more parts and hire double the number of personnel compared to their Chinese operation. The management cites not only rising labor costs in China, but also the difficult operating environment there on persistent THAAD reprisals.
It's not just the spike in labor cost. Competition and business conditions are sharply deteriorating. It's especially become harder to compete with Chinese companies with our narrowing technology gap.
Direct investment by Korean companies into China has drastically dropped this year, coming in at $1.75 billion in the first 7 months, just 4/10 of what it was over the same period last year. Instead, businesses are turning their eyes to the potential of Southeast Asia to fill the space left dormant by China. In fact, when calculated as a rate of average annual growth in the decade leading to 2016, exports to ASEAN nations superseded that of China and that of the world at large.
ASEAN countries like Vietnam and Indonesia are growing economies with a young population and an expanding middle class, so there are many opportunities there.
The Korea Federation of SMEs has created an exploratory committee to study market needs in countries like Cambodia and Laos. Efforts to extend the reach of Korean firms are just beginning and are expected to pick up steam in the coming years. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun is urging officials to thoroughly prepare for the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics and Paralympic Games with just over 110 days to go. The Prime Minister also encouraged North Korea's participation in the Games, saying it would foster peace and promote further interest in the Olympics. He urged the government to closely monitor ticket sales, which have only sold 30% of the total available, and highlighted the need for more promotional events. Lee will be in Athens this weekend to attend the first torchbearer ceremony for the 2018 Winter Olympics. The U.S. Transportation Security Administration is adopting tougher security measures for carry-on devices on both domestic and international flights. Effective as of now, the new measures rule that any device larger than a cell phone must be removed from carry-on bags and scanned separately by airport security. Previously, only laptop computers went through a separate scan, but the list now includes tablets, cameras, e-readers, and game consoles. The measures have already come into force at 10 different airports and will be applied to all U.S. airports in the coming months. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates has topped this year's Forbes list of 400 richest Americans, marking the 24th straight year to do so. He has a net worth of $89 billion, with Amazon's Jeff Bezos coming in second, followed by Warren Buffett. U.S. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, saw his ranking slip from 156th place in 2016 to 248th this year, with his fortune falling by $600 million to $3.1 billion. The magazine attributed his decline to a recent drop in value of his Manhattan real estate holdings and a costly presidential campaign. It's Fashion Week here in Seoul as the industry looks ahead to next year's spring and summer seasons. Now, hundreds of buyers from overseas are in town, so it's a big opportunity for local designers to show off their talents. Here's our Lee Jung-yeon with a closer look.
Fashionistas across Korea have this week circled in their calendars. Seoul Fashion Week for the 2018 Spring-Summer collection has opened its curtains. New York, Paris, London, Milan. With Seoul Fashion Week growing every year, the city is hoping its name will join the Big Four. It's the morning of the opening day, with models getting prepped to showcase the clothing line for the first main stage event of the season by Ulkin. It's a unisex casual brand by Lee Sung-dong, which focuses on upcycling eco-fashion and is especially popular in overseas markets such as China.
I think because our designs are unique, they're loved abroad. Seoul Fashion Week gives us exposure to buyers that would normally be very hard to reach, so it's a very good opportunity to do business. Around half of the buyers that contact us find us through this event.
The organizers of Seoul Fashion Week are inviting more international buyers with purchasing power every year, adding 30 buyers in this year alone to bring the total to some 400.
The most important role we play is to promote Korean designers to the global market. We invite buyers based on how much they purchase through the show, but more importantly this year, we're looking beyond sales to make lasting bonds with foreign buyers, such as Barney's New York, who are here this year.
I think the Seoul Fashion Week is the best organized fashion week I ever saw. I think that Seoul Fashion Week can be really important for the Asian market. I think the brands are younger, also it's more for a younger customer, and which is also really important also for my store.
The 2018 Spring-Summer Hair Seoul Fashion Week takes place until October 21st, presenting a total of some 41 collections by Korea's top 35 designer brands and 6 fashion companies. Lee Jung-yeon, Business Daily.
And that brings us to the end. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.